I'm Alfonso Mendoza, host of the EdTech Live podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, BryonCarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey, welcome to episode 14 of Fresh Air at 5, my podcast, as I bring to you my curated collection of this week's listening that you will be able to listen to in the coming episodes. And starting us on the top with this week is Brad Hughes with the Good News Brad Hughes Show, as he talks with Janice Moyer, as well as House of EdTech. So thanks, Chris and Brad, for creating content that we can listen to. If you haven't heard these podcasts, take a listen. Fantastic to take some learning. There is SEL learning that goes on a whole lot in Brad Hughes' show, and then technology and a lot of educational thinking that goes along in Chris's show. So fantastic. They have grown me in my understanding of being an educator. So yes, carry on and take a listen. And thanks for listening to episode 14 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. Hey PLN, it's March 29th, 2021, and it's the end of my spring break. Go back to work today, as many of us in British Columbia are doing, and around the continent, and I hope you've had a restful spring break. Behind me is the near full moon. It's a clear day, about -1 degree Celsius right now, and crisp and refreshing. I was concerned I was going to have a hard time getting up this morning because of the lack of schedule that I've had this past week and trying to get up to get back into schedule. But when you don't have anything you actually have to do, it's harder to get up. So, hey, it was awesome to get up this morning and get out and get some fresh air this morning. Hey, speaking of fresh air, Fresh Air at 5, welcome here to the Fresh Air at 5 podcast. This segment is in the opening segment for episode 13 of Fresh Air at 5 podcast that will be coming out in a week and a half now. I think it will be on April 7th, the Friday at midnight. So you can stay tuned for that and catch the compilation of this week's videos that I put on Twitter. All right, this morning as I start walking, top of my queue is the Good News Brad News Show, episode 13. And Brad, I really like your opening of how, some view it as unlucky, the number. Construction companies skip the 13th floor when they're building a building because it's unlucky, but it's not an unlucky number. The only thing unlucky about it was March 13th of 2020. Hey, and we're past that now. That's in the past, that Friday the 13th. We're better now. We're here. So, on the Good News Brad News Show this morning, he talks with Janice Moyer, who is a mom and teacher, and she has wisdom oozing out. She's got a blog called Tough Bananas, and I'm going to go check out her blog, Janice. So thanks for sharing your tips and tricks and just a bit about your life and being vulnerable, and her how her boring classroom is so vibrant and not boring. Take a listen to what Janice has to say. Thanks for sharing about vulnerability and yourself. Talk to you soon. Bye. One more thing for March 29th, 2021. Okay, I wasn't done. And Janice Moyer has inspired me to think about how I do things as I go through my days and build relationships and provide a safe space for students. What I didn't catch from Janice is what grade level she teaches. I could probably go look it up, but it's fascinating for me to hear her talk about community and how we need to do the things we need to do for our community and our spaces that we are in so that we can keep others around us safe. Really appreciate that, because that sense of community makes a difference as we approach coming to school as opposed to being on our own and kind of isolated. I teach at an online school, and I find that a lot of the times students are independent from each other because they are not in a classroom community in my online spaces. So we're an asynchronous, anytime, any place, any space, class learning space with our secondaries. And so for that reason, they don't interact with other students very much. Our face-to-face students that come into the building, yes, that's where we can take time and build into their relational buckets and build relationships with them. A lot of great things for you to hear from Janice. She talks about vulnerability and how vulnerability is such an important strength, and it is perceived as a weakness when we are vulnerable, but that vulnerability allows us to make connections with other people, because regardless of who you are, we are all vulnerable and have areas of weakness that we can grow in. So keep in touch with each other, call someone up, invite them to go for coffee, even have a Zoom chat just so you can connect. All right, that's all for now. I'm going to check out House of EdTech coming up right away. Okay, bye. One more thing for March 29th, 2021. As I'm wrapping up Fresh Air at 5 right now this morning, I am just finishing with listening to House of EdTech, episode 176, which Chris brings to us the EdTech Final Four for 2021. And this is one of the staple episodes that he has talked about in the past on House of EdTech and how he curates and collects and shares the 4 tools that are important for students and also for teachers this year. And so there are 8 great tools and ideas that he brings under the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And so, Chris, good job. I appreciate your thoughts, and I appreciate how you included stuff that we can do with our students, as well as things that as teachers we can expand on and learn about and grow in. You talked about a creativity tool and using social media for a creativity tool. It's amazing how we can be creative in 240 characters on Twitter and how we can communicate a lot of information in a small space, as well as Instagram and TikTok you talked about, or whatever social media that you have that you can connect with other creators like yourself and be able to put content out there. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm recording this video so that I can create this content to put onto my Twitter feed later this morning to connect with others. And part of this is about that critical thinking, about how I listen to podcasts and how I reflect and I think about the things that I'm learning so that I can be creative and communicative with you. I think me doing this gets all 4 going for me. Part of that other creation is about stringing them together and making my podcast using Audacity and other technology tools. Chris, you got me going on that. It's fantastic. Thanks everybody for listening this morning. Chris, thanks for your final 4. Need some ideas? Take a listen to this episode. Awesome. Bye-bye.
All right, so I am taking my inspiration. Welcome to NiceAirAtNine. Shout out to Bryon Carpenter for his Fresh Air at 5. I'm on spring break this week, and I am walking through my neighborhood, and I just finished listening to a podcast called Reflect Ed. You might have heard me talk about it, I don't know, 1,000 times, because it's with my buddy AJ Bianco. And in his 12th episode, he has on Dave Frangiosa talking about going gradeless in Dave's new book, which comes out today, which is very, very exciting. So want to give a shout out to AJ and Dave. They had a great conversation about what it really means to be gradeless, and you should definitely check out AJ's podcast, reflectedpodcast.com. And congratulations, Dave Frangiosa, on the podcast, the book, and yeah, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, hope you are having a great day. See ya.
Hey, Chris, NiceAirAtNine. That's fantastic. That was at 6 o'clock my time, and you know what? This guy didn't get out of bed this morning. His alarm didn't go off properly, and I slept in. I guess I needed it. First day back after being away for 2 weeks for spring break and having better part of 45 assignments to mark that were sitting there. Took a while, as well as messaging, but hey, that's okay. That's what happens when you have spring break, and online students can continue to be online. All right, good for you. I'm proud of you for getting outside and recording your reflections, and I'm going to use yours today as the segment for Fresh Air at 5, as I didn't get out at 5 this morning like I do. Thanks. Have a great day. Okay, bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's March 30th, 2021, just after 5 o'clock for Fresh Air at 5, as I'm out here walking, getting some fresh air. I think about Top Gun, when Maverick and Goose said, I feel the need for speed. Well, I'm not walking fast, but I feel the need to breathe. And so I needed that today because I had a full day of marking and teaching, and it was a good day, but it was really full. And I got home and I'm like, I need to breathe, I need to get some fresh air. So I came out, and like Chris Nessie this morning, he got out for some fresh air, some nice air at 9, he called it. And so, hi Chris, good for you to get out and record your thoughts in the manner that I do Fresh Air at 5. Okay, today, as I'm walking, I listened to Reflect Ed. This is the episode that Chris listened to this morning, as AJ Bianco on episode 12 of Reflect Ed, go take a listen to this, talk to David Frangiosa, who has, of today, released a book, and it's coming out today about going gradeless. And I don't know the title, David. I apologize for that, but if I look up your name, I'll find it. And you and Elise, your co-authors, in about 15 minutes from now, are having a live stream to talk about your book, talk about gradeless practice, talk about the work you're doing, and to invite people on a journey that with you as you continue this and bring them alongside. You're not saying that you have the best way, but you have a way that has been working for you and Elise in your classroom spaces. And I really dig hearing about that. A takeaway that I got out of this is that we need to bring our students along to get away from using grades as currency. And you know, it's unfortunate that we have this currency that has been developed over these years of grades. And what does it really mean? And you know, we want our students to learn and not to earn, but to learn so that they can be powerful and superheroes. That's my thoughts. Hopefully this gets me into your draw for the book. Looking forward to that. Thanks, and good luck in a few minutes on your live stream. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's March 31st, 2021. It's the last day of March. We're 3 months finished this calendar year. It's amazing how fast the time goes. I was reflecting with our vice principal yesterday about, wow, it's been fast, but it's also been slow this year. As you know, that we're already here at the end of March. All right, so this morning out here for Fresh Air at 5, I'm out walking and listening to Got Tech, the podcast with Eric and Nick, as Eric and Nick talk with Debbie Tannenbaum. And thank you, Debbie, for joining Eric and Nick on your podcast. And as you talk about your website and talk about what you're doing with technology and being a tech coach in your district and working with littles and elementary and and bringing technology and creation to the younger grades. You know, it's something that I'd like to do in my building, but I haven't got to that stage yet with the littles. I've done it with, you know, the intermediates, which are grade 3 to 5, but not the little ones. And so that's something that I got to keep on the radar and keep in front of me so that I can start working on that. I'm going to check out your website, Debbie, Techy-Notes, and also that's on your website that you have Techy-Notes, but your website, I'll put that, that's in the show notes for Gut Tech, the podcast. And Debbie, you and I, we actually connected back in January on Teachers on Fire Roundtable as Tim brought together myself and you and Livia Chan and others in a roundtable discussion about OneWord 2021. And so my one word for 2021 is appreciate, because, you know, I want to keep in front of me my appreciation for the work that others do. And I appreciate the work that you do and that you bring. And I appreciate the work that Nick and Eric bring. And Eric and Nick, we've talked about me coming on your podcast, and we need to get that rolling. So I'm just going to put that here so you hear that again. We got to get a conversation going. Have a great day, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Bye-bye. One more thing for March 31st, 2021, as I'm wrapping up my walk this morning, I'm out here and listened to Leader of Learning episode 110 as Dan Kreinus talks with Kim Strobble. And Kim, I heard you talk with Jen Giffen 3 weeks ago as you were on Shooks and Gift podcast, and I heard a similar message that you brought today to talk with Dan about the science of happiness and the work that you do as a happiness coach. And I really want to say that I'm appreciating hearing you bring this to the fore. And I'm quite a positive and happy person typically, but as I am listening, I go, oh, these things have happened to me. And I have now a better frame for understanding myself and my family and my students at school, and just a different lens for approaching the stuff that people are going through that you don't even know, that's below the surface. And so thank you, Kim, for bringing your message again to talk with Dr. Dan. And Dan, I appreciate you stepping into this challenging space because, you know, you just, as you mentioned on your podcast, had your grandmother pass away the night of the recording that you and Kim just did. And that's hard. That's hard when we have loss. And in my own home, my daughter has experienced anxiety recently, and just at the beginning of the COVID lockdown, just before that, we had a traumatic incident happen in our home, and she had sought counseling, and it's something that I didn't really understand prior, but trauma is one of those things that doesn't just go away. It's one of those things that's an event that happened in our lives, and we can press beyond that, but it is something that we need to rewire our brains, and the counseling that my daughter sought taught me some of these things. Thank you so much. You need to take a listen to this if you haven't listened to Kim Strobble. She talks with Jen Giffen about some technology, talks with Dr. Dan about real life, and it's really fantastic. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN, it's April 1st, 2021. That's not a joke. I know it's April Fool's Day, so that's why I'm saying that. But it's the day that you gotta go get your BC basic fishing license so that you can go fishing this next fishing season that starts today and ends on March 31st of the following year. So I picked up mine last night and super excited because that is something I like to do, and I'm planning on heading out tomorrow to go do that. So that's one way that I'm going to be taking care of myself and doing a hobby and a lifestyle and just having something that I enjoy for self-care. And, it sometimes puts food on my table, not all the time, but sometimes it does. And I really enjoy the process and the focus that fishing gives me. So yes, I'm a fly fisher. That's one of my main primary ways of fishing that I really enjoy. Okay, so it's April 1st, and this morning as I'm out for Fresh Air at 5, I listened to a podcast that I've never listened to before. So this is new to me, and was brought to me by someone that I know that shared that her husband, who is a doctor of psychology, he wrote a book. And so anyhow, so here's my thoughts. This is called a Reslience Project, and it's with Cindy Thompson, and this is episode 19 that I listened to today as guest Dr. Kirk Austin shared his thoughts about a book that he wrote called Buoyancy, Building Resilience in Kids. And I know Kirk personally. He is a dad of some of the students that I actually teach today, that I'm going to be seeing today, which is crazy and cool. And he wrote a book about this process of growing resilient kids. And he has an acronym in his book called BREATHE. And air is so very important to me, as you know, because Fresh Air at 5. And how does breathing help us manage stress and the tension and the trauma that we go through? So I encourage you to take a listen. Educators, take a listen to this episode, because there's going to be things in here that you're going to learn, and go pick up Kirk's book. Thanks. Bye. One more thing for April 1st, 2021. Okay, you guessed it. I wasn't done, because I got to the end and I looked at the time and it said 2 minutes and 20 seconds on Twitter. You can only have that for a video, so that's why I just stopped. Okay, so my thoughts more about the book that Kirk Austin has written, and he shared with Cindy Thompson on the Resilience Project, episode 19. He shares about being vulnerable as adults in our spaces, that we can model what it's like to be able to deal with tension and stress and conflict. And we need to be vulnerable in doing so that we can show the young people that are around us what that means, so that they can learn to get through that. So I would encourage you, educators, to go and take a look at Kirk's book. It's a psychology book. And, Kirk, I have not read many psychology books. I probably have, but wasn't aware of that over my years. But it's about how our minds and our bodies work together in our physiological response to stress that you're talking about. So I think I'm going to go pick up your book, Kirk, and I'm going to get you to sign it for me. That'll make a difference. And I'm also going to start working through for myself how I can bring some of this into my home with my own kids and my students at school. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Cindy and Kirk, for talking and sharing your voices here. And I hope that educators beyond will take a listen to what is going on with buoyancy and how we can give kids tools to float all the time. Thanks. Bye. Hey, PLN, it's later on the day of April 1st, 2021, and it was a good day today, and my students and staff at my school pranked me, and I was the victim of an April Fool's Day prank, and it was so funny, absolutely hilarious, and it made my day that they took the effort and time to get me. So that was pretty good. Okay, as I'm wrapping up my day, this is the last segment of episode 14 of Fresh Air at 5 podcast, and I am delivering papers for my daughter right now, and getting that done before we have our Easter weekend. So I listened to the STEM Everyday podcast with Chris Woods as he was talking to a gentleman, and his name actually has escaped me right now, on episode 195 of the Daily STEM podcast, as they talked about cybersecurity and how cybersecurity is so important and imperative to exposing our students to in our schools all the way from a young age about, cyber safety and about how we can behave online, which is different than digital citizenship, but providing an opportunity for exposure to this field of study and operation that allows us to have a safe internet. And it was really good to listen to. And what I heard Chris and this gentleman, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. It'll be in the tweet, so it'll be there. But how they talked about how we have to get our students exposed to this, because they don't know what they don't know as far as what do you want to be when you grow up, saying to them that they what do you want to be? I want to be a firefighter. Well, that's because you know about firefighters. But what about the jobs that you don't know when you're in school that you can approach and get into? And, you know, providing an opportunity so that they can have experience that is other than university experience, because university isn't the only place to train students and grow them in their understanding. My son is in the electrical apprenticeship program through the University of the Fraser Valley, which is a university program, but it's a trades program. And he got exposed to that through the trades careers program at my school district. That's about all. Have a good one. Talk to you. Bye-bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.